Hello.
Hi.
Another episode of the Healer's Corner. We'll be talking about crystal skulls. Hello, Calavera, the other crystal skull guru through the store. We are going to go over working with crystal skulls. And Maria, you work with them. And we have on with us tonight Calavera, reader in the store, the keeper of crystal skulls as well. I'm the baby one here in that I have 10. You guys blow me out of the water.
I inherit some of mine.
Don't backpedal. They're yours. Now I know, Calavera, earlier you said you started collecting about 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Maria, when did you start collecting the skulls and how did you feel, called to start working with them?
Actually, the skull started about maybe 25 years ago. But at that time, I only had a couple. I did not realize it was going to grow. And when somebody who owns a store started bringing them in, yeah, they got bigger. I had like little ones, and I like the little ones because I can carry it with me, but they got bigger.
As any addiction will do. Now, so for those that might be new working with crystal skulls, a brief history, if either one of you have, of like how and why you think humans started working with crystal skulls and working with them.
Well, the story that I was told, or I have heard, I've heard several, and I also watched documentaries of them. The skulls picks the caretaker, and it started back with the Mitchell Hedge skull that was found in our I guess archaeological dig. I want to, I don't know what, I don't know if it's one of Peru or if it was the Mayans. I can't remember which one. But he found the Mitchell Hedge skull. And then later on, there were other skulls that popped up. I know that at one time, the kahunas, they were caretakers of the Cernergy skull. And currently now the caretaker lives in Arizona. So, and then I found out that there's 13 of them. So that's the history that I know. And some of them are private collections, some of them are in the museum, and some of them are out and about like Max or Cernergy. So it's, they can't explain how these skulls were made. They have no explanation. You try to approach it in a scientific way, and some of them you can't really scientifically, put together. So
Now, what history do you have, Calavera, when it comes to skulls? Because I know you also work with animal skulls, not just crystal skulls. So I feel like you kind of cross over back and forth and you work with both kinds.
Yeah, so I definitely know the history of the 13 crystal skulls. And the cool thing about them that Maria mentioned was that there was no lot, because they were made so long ago, there was no technology to carve them in the way that they did. So there's a whole background story of that. Um, so that story kind of erupted and into new age, and they use the crystal skull itself to and basically be a center of consciousness. um People use crystal skulls for a bunch of different reasons, but it originally did come from that story and that history. um there's so much controversy around it, so I don't like to go like super deep into it, but they took what they learned and brought it into the modern day practice of crystal skulls, and how when they say when all the 13 crystal skulls are together, that basically that it will have the secret to living a harmonious and basically a paradise on earth. And there's supposedly what they found 12 out of the 13.
No,
Whether we
they found
find
13.
they found
They
all
found,
13.
they found all 13.
Okay, so where's the secret? I need to know.
Uh, the they said that the 13th one, and this is just hearsay, I don't know because it's a private collector, is a twin flame crystal skull, where there's two separate skulls together.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Hmm. But yeah, that's the history that I know. Of just using skulls in general to help access a deeper understanding of consciousness. And there's so many different things that you can do with them. So,
So for people that are new, might be a little scared of the carving, like, ooh, it's a skull, it's scary. But maybe they have a little bit of a trepidation interest, like they're still interested, but they're also kind of afraid. Why would somebody go ahead and cross into working with a skull carving, be it in healing or reading?
Well, for me, the shape of the crystal has nothing to do. It still comes down to the crystal. Um, you can program it, you can consecrate it, you can use it for healing. It comes back to the crystal. So you have shapes of a heart, you have shapes of an animal. Why not a skull? It's close and resembling to our form. That's how I view it. It's not something scary. It's not something, it depends on the practitioner. It comes back to the practitioner, how you're going to use it.
I totally agree with that too. Hollywood really like butchered what the skull symbolizes.
Mhm.
I'm not even going to sugarcoat that, just like how they arrow into something it wasn't and the Ouija board into something it wasn't. So, they use the symbol of a skull to depict, death or poison or and they took that and made it into something scarier than what it is. I find it funny when people say that they're afraid of skulls or that it freaks them out when it is literally the foundation of your face. It
Mhm.
is the one thing that makes you your own self and your own person. And the one thing that houses your brain and the thing that makes you unique. So I always find that kind of interesting because I'm like, you like your teeth, right? Like you like that's bone. Like so it's just it's definitely been um made into something that it never should have been. But yeah, that's it's demystifying all of that. Um and it's carved into something, like, super pretty, like, I can't be afraid of a pink rose quartz skull, you know?
Mhm.
Now, I always find it, awesome when there's somebody coming in, they're kind of new to the whole metaphysical and everything, and they are drawn to the skulls. But then, they're like, well, I don't know. I've never worked with anything. Like, is it okay to work with the skull when I never have before? And I'm like, absolutely. And the reason why you're drawn to this is because it's calling you. It wants to work with you, be it the stone or the carving itself. But and I think for some people, the fact that it's carved into a skull, there's like the subconscious thought that it's easier to communicate with that stone because it's got a mouth now.
Mhm.
So it's easier to perceive that it's talking to you, to have that conversation rather than just like holding a palm stone or a tumbled or a point, and then, right? Because some people are going to feel silly that they're holding a point, but they're talking to it. But if it's got
Mhm.
a mouth on it, of course it can talk to you and
Mhm.
give you information and give you insight because it's got a mouth. So it's always fun, and I enjoy it when it's a new person and that first thing that they're drawn to is a skull, not hearts, not stars, not points, not tumbles. They're like, "Ooh, but I really like these," and I'm like, "Yes," and delve into that and listen to what they have to tell you. We're dealing with talking about skulls. not only in just communication, because they can give you different information, like different types of healing that needs to be done, work into like past life, upcoming, all sorts of information, but using them in healing. Now, like Calavera, if somebody is sitting there across the table from you and they're like, I need some kind of healing energy because you've started down your healing path, how would you use the stone or the skull in that healing work with them? And does it matter the type of stone?
To me, it there are stones that definitely emanate more of a healing energy. That like for example, I have this big old 30-pound baby now, and she is made out of Afghan jade, which is known for its nervous system regulating properties. Um, so I think it can amplify that healing. And I have, certain skulls that want to do healing, certain skulls that don't. So I think it also comes down to what does your skull want to do, and what type of work do you want to do with your skulls, and kind of having that understanding with them. Cuz I have some skulls that are like, do not touch me. Like I don't want random people touching me. And I have skulls that are like, oh yeah, like use me to help regulate. So the energy of the stone just being around. So, for example, that Afghan jade and the type of energy that that emits off will automatically kind of engulf the environment, um, and the energy of the skull itself. So, I definitely feel like as long as you and that skull have that understanding, it almost doesn't really matter what the material is. It's the consciousness inside.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Maria, do you find that you might trade out some of the skulls in healing work if you use them in your healing? Because I know you do a lot of pranic, but if there's skull energy being used in that healing, do you find that you're trading them out depending on the stone or just the client and the client's skull vibe of who gets along with who?
Um, I have my traveling skulls that comes with me, and I have an understanding with them that they wanna come with me because what they're doing is that they're securing the space that I'm in with my client. So my clients usually don't, I mean, they look at them, they don't touch them, and my skulls are pretty much welcoming if they want to touch them. But usually a lot of my clients don't even ask. They just look at them and they, oh, okay, she has an altar. Because the way I position it, I have it in an altar. I don't have it where I do the healing because I'm moving around. So, but we do have an understanding that there is when they're there, they are actually amping the whole entire area, and securing that space there with the energy.
Oh, I'm sure your clients now are going to want to come touch because you just made that known. Here they come. Everybody's going to want to rub on their heads.
Little hands, though, you want to rub them.
Now, how would somebody pick a skull? And I know I think all 3 of us are gonna be like, "They pick you."
We do.
Because they're actually, and Cavalera knows this, and even Melissa. You don't want, you had no intention of getting a skull. You had no intention of bringing a skull home. But at the end of the day, you're bringing a skull home because they will keep on talking to you while you're there, and you end up bringing them home. So that's how pretty much how they pick you. You can try and pick a skull. You can try and look at a particular skull. Oh, I like that. But when you touch it, your energy and that skull energy may not mesh.
Yeah, kinda. We're gonna do stuff together. Yeah, and that's why I still have Bob. Do
Yeah,
you remember what your first skull was, Calavera?
I do. Oh, where is she at? She's hiding somewhere. She was a super tiny, um, and I say super tiny, she's just small, and she's a gray agate, and, she gave me the name funny enough, she gave me the name Journey in the beginning, and now I'm over 100 later, so it has been a journey. Um, so that was my first.
Who was your first one, Maria?
I had a tiny one also, and it was the very first time I ever met Max the Crystal Skull. I was invited about 20 something years ago to someone who had a viewing at their house. I had no clue what a crystal skull was. I was just so mesmerized. I saw this thing on the table, crystal, and all these little itty bitty ones around it. And the light that was coming, and there was absolutely no spotlight on it. There was no light, it was dim, and that was it. And the name that he gave me was Together. So I'm going, okay, this is weird.
I didn't start small. Bob.
Bob was
Bob
your
was the
first?
first. He's
Yeah.
still there. Yeah. Um, so it's we did not go small in the beginning. Um, and I got him to sell and he's refused to leave. Um, I can't tell you how many people would hold him and like, "Oh, I love him. I'm gonna come back on payday. They never came back. And he'd be like, "Why won't you leave?" And he's like, "'Cause I like it here." So, Bob. Do skulls have names? Yes.
Yes. Yes. Henceforth, Bob.
Bob is the name I gave him. That wasn't really his name. I had trouble like understanding or hearing because I thought I was mishearing it, but another reader was like, "No, this is the name." And I guess he was mad at first when I was calling him Bob because he thought I was mocking him. And then when I explained, like, no, that's a character from like a favorite book series that there is there's a deity named Bob who lives in a skull. And so the skull's called Bob, and like hence the name. And so he's okay with it now. But yeah. The amount of information in those things are insane. Yes.
Yes.
And the whole topic tonight of working with them and what you can do with them and to not be afraid and to use that information and that symbiotic, back and forth thing to better your spiritual practices. Um all of them, do all of them have names?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whether
Yes.
or not they share it with you is probably the follow-up question.
Yes.
Finding out why they don't wanna give you a name.
Yes.
Um, so when it comes to the healing work with skulls, they can do quite a bit. And Maria, I think you do a little more on the healing side than Calavera, 'cause Calavera, you're more of a reader. You're dabbling into the healing. I've yanked you over into some of the healing work, like, no, 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 you're finally gonna address this. But when using skulls in healing, like what can they help in the healing work?
You can have your skull placed on a certain part of your body. You can balance out your chakras. You can actually put a skull, and I do this in my house. I have an altar for my skulls, but if I feel that a room need an energy clearing, I will actually put the skull there, and I'll talk to it, and then I just leave it there for about maybe a half an hour, 45 minutes. I know my skulls want to go back to where they were. And you can clear the room, and you can also like the rose. I love rose quartz in any kind of shape. I have a small little rose quartz skull that travels with me. And if I do feel that a person needs a little bit more healing, or there's some underlying trauma that they have not addressed or doesn't even know is buried deep down, I would actually go by, and like I said, my clients don't touch my skulls, but I would actually go by her and I will touch her a little bit so my hands will have the healing, and that's how I use her also. because crystal skulls are a gentle energy, and is also helps in trauma healing. So do not be surprised when or any kind of rose quartz, if you touch it, if you put it next to your solar plex, and if there's a lot of things there, oh, you will be purging a lot.
Now, when you're doing work with, your skulls, Calavera, and healing, like, how are they helping you in your healing work?
So I have a support skull. He's like my emotional support buddy. So while let's just say I'm channeling for someone and reading for someone, I have a skull that helps keep me balanced when the emotions of other people that I'm reading for might be a little intense, maybe a little up and down. And I use this specific skull to help bring me back to myself and to help me stay grounded as a way of almost like healing myself while I'm doing my work. And then with other skulls that are willing to want to help, um, I usually always have a masculine, a feminine, and then an amplifier, or like what I call a master skull. And that that little trio helps with whatever that client needs. Sometimes, they just want to help them with the energy of the room. And sometimes they have a healing message or something that needs to come across to help heal the client, or help them face something. So,
Now, you touched on 2 other subtopics that we were gonna talk about tonight. One being master, like head of the house skull,
mhm.
and then we touched a little bit into masculine and feminine and maybe how do you know and you brought up a good point earlier today, maybe they feel both. Maybe it's masculine and feminine depending on
Mhm.
what the client needs. But, so let's start with masculine, feminine before we get into the whole master skull. Um, so how do you know if it's masculine or feminine? And does it really matter to know?
Well, for me, immediately I sense either it's a feminine or masculine energy that's embodied in that skull vessel. So, and then later on, when I start asking them their name, most likely it will either be like if it's a feminine energy, it'll be a feminine name. If it's a masculine energy, it'll be a masculine. I have not come across a skull that embodied both energy yet.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Maria on that one, where it's the energy, where we kind of associate, and this is where I put the whole, just because it's a masculine energy doesn't necessarily mean man or boy, and just because it's a feminine energy doesn't necessarily mean woman, female, girl. So it can just be the energy that brings up, but usually most of the time, like 99, probably 100% of the time for me, the feminine energy, that soft energy, ends up giving itself a feminine name, and the same thing that masculine energy gives itself more of a masculine name. I do have a skull that has both. um, Maria has confirmed this with me, because for the longest time I had no idea the name of this skull. It was very confusing. And there is more of like a forefront energy, of it being more masculine, though it does have both, and that can get very confusing. But some skulls do inhabit both the soft and the soft nurturing and the protective shielding of the masculine and feminine.
Is it a Gemini skull? It is, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Now, is it really important to know the masculine or feminine, like, when you're working with the client, or is it just like a little bit of tidbit information to store in the back of the mind, and it doesn't really matter when you're working with them?
For me, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because I usually, like I said, I have like a balance of feminine and masculine, and they know what they need to do when they're traveling with me. So it doesn't really matter. Mostly it's to secure the area because I really don't want any wandering soul, and there are wandering souls, to interrupt the healing. So I kind of put a barricade, and they helped me put a barricade along with my, all my guides and ancestors and spirit for that healing session. So it will not be interrupted. And no one is gonna barge in because it has happened. Had in the beginning, I've had spirit barging in a client's healing session, and that's when I was doing distant also. So it does help me when you secure the area. So it doesn't really matter. Um, but as far as protection is concerned, it's more the masculine energy for protecting. If you want to bring in a masculine skull when you're meditating, because when you're meditating, you're pretty much out in the open. So if you bring in one of your masculine skulls there, sit with you, and then if you want to have the feminine energy, you can have your feminine skull sit with you to go into a meditation because you're really going to be out in the open when you're meditating.
For my specific readings, I like to have both. So for me, I think it matters a little bit more. I like to have a feminine and my masculine because I never know who's walking in that day. My skulls are also really good at picking up what they need more of. So I've had people that have come in and have kind of basically they are so masculine heavy in their energy that they're not letting anything in, and they're very they become like, I guess, bitter and hard to the world, where they need to let that soft nurturing side come out and to be a little bit more vulnerable. And I have my feminine skulls usually speaking up more. I've had skulls flat out just be like, yeah, they need more of me, and then I'm able to put two and two together that, oh, they need more of this specific energy. So they help me kind of balance out other people's imbalances, is probably a good way of saying.
Nice. So, I mean, it's healing and informational, both
Mm.
sides. And I'm sure the deliverance of said energy and information is going to differ depending on that energy.
Mhm.
So, the topic of a master skull, what is it? And what does that mean for all of the other skulls? I know in the store we were joking. I'm like, oh, a master and the followers. And immediately Bob's cohorts were like, we are not followers. So they did not like that term. Well, but Calavera, you were the first one that I've heard of somebody having master. So I'm like, oh, start with that. How do you get a master? How do you know it's a master?
Oh, the bond, the energy of a master skull or a and I guess when I say master, it doesn't need to be. I think when people think master skull, they think, oh, something big, way out of budget. Like, I'll never have a master skull. A master skull can be something, just as small to just as big to not to maybe being something in the in between. There's just an energy about them where they command a space. They necessarily don't show more feminine or masculine. They just show a overall presence. um when I first met my like master skull, it was one of those like slow motion movies where I'm walking into a gem show and it was just like eye contact, and the energy of this skull was unlike anything I've ever felt before. Just feels very powerful, it's very intense. It's wanting to work. It's the kind of like the light beam of all the other skulls. Um Inhabits more than just like one trait. Or it might be a trait that is very niche that it ends up taking on. I have my master skull is brandy, and usually it ends up the most common usually ends up being a quartz because they can be programmed to be anything they want to be or anything you want them to be. um but she She basically just commands the space, commands the room. There's almost like a charging like aspect to this skull where she helps amplify and take care of the other skulls. So kind of like when we go back to the history of the crystal skulls, those would be the master skulls. They are powerful, strong, amplifying, ancient, and they that's why people have other skulls that are infused with the power of that skull.
Mhm.
So they would what I would kind of call a master.
Now, Maria, I've never heard you talk about master skulls, but you agreed. So I'm like, oh, you apparently have one too. And how did you know yours was a master?
I have quite a few skulls that was infused with some of the master skulls that I have. And oddly enough, the mind that pretty much keep everything in line is this small little skull, and I don't it's in my traveling, and I call him Baby Search because I couldn't with all the master skulls, I connected with Serenity more so because knowing the fact that I did not even know this. This is before I knew this. I held a small little one and I kept on seeing the islands. I kept on seeing palm trees, coconut, and I'm going, whoa, why? And then later on, I looked at particular skull and I said, wow. So I do have one that was infused with him for 12 plus years. And it was time for him to go out into the world, and I acquired him. So he is the one that keeps everybody in line, especially the one that's very talkative ones. And he's a small little guy, and but he keeps everything in line.
I I just picture him like, "Shut up! She's talking!" Like,
Now,
He doesn't does that, but he gives out an energy and all this. Oh, he is not going to be happy. He's not happy now, so we need to, you know, behave.
he gives out the look to the other,
Yes, there you
that
go.
that shut up look. Now, is it possible for that master to switch out?
Yes, yes.
yeah. I think skulls how I try to describe it to people is there is a entity. And sometimes, that entity will leave to make place for something else. Or that consciousness, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm,
Where they switch out sometimes, and this is what I tell people in my readings. My master skull energy will move out of the way for someone on their spirit team to come in to help relay a message. So I they will move out and then they'll move back in. You'll feel it's again, this is very much like a feeling of the energy where I'm like, oh, okay, Brandy feels like Brandy again.
mhm, mhm.
Or so and so feels like so and so again. But yeah, they definitely flip and switch out.
Mine just leaves. He goes on vacation. He leaves the skull. He goes wandering. Like Bob's not home. He's off doing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, we knew when Bob wasn't at work.
Mine also, once in a while, baby Serge will not do anything. Like he doesn't want to take a rest, but he's with me. So he would pinpoint to one of them. So it could be Rosie, could be Abraham. Abraham, that's called. Oh yeah, when he gets that, he he keeps him in line.
I picture your Abraham being kind of like the drill sergeant, you know?
Pretty much, yeah.
Now, since Abraham is very stern and serious, it's fun to point out that not all skulls are stern and serious. They have fun personalities, and working with them can be fun.
Hmm, hmm.
So, don't expect when you're meditating if they start cracking a little bit of joke with you or they're trying to lighten the mood, especially if you have been under a lot of stress and you need to relieve that. Like they're fun little personalities. I mean, Bob is a smartass, but he gets his work done. But it's not the prim, the proper, the drill sergeant, the stern. So I think a lot of people kind of assume that you have to always be serious and you have to hold a very stern, strict space in order to work with them. And I think you two would agree that
Mhm.
not always.
Mhm. Mhm. Yep.
I'm sure they can be serious when needed. Um, Mine do a type 45 like it's open mic. I mean, when Bob is out of his skull, people have caught glimpses with him. He's walking around in like a Hawaiian shirt, khaki shorts, kid, he looks like Santa Claus on vacation. And it's hard to take that like stern and, keep you in line. It's like, hey, what's up? It's like, okay, Bob, get back in your skull. It's closing time.
Mhm.
Now, have either one of you seen your skull entities out of their skulls, kind of milling about, having fun, doing their thing?
If I have, I call them in. I deliberately call them in. Like, I have a few skulls at home that I can't carry all 40 something of my skulls with me, but I call the energy in. I don't see them, but sometimes they would, "Hi." I was like, "Oh, okay. I know I haven't been paying attention to you lately." But I had to put boundaries with my skulls. They cannot disturb me past 6 o'clock. No, this is not time to chat. This is my time. I need to calm down and, you know, I usually have my skulls with me during the day because I work remotely from home. And I have like a little area here and I kind of change them once in a while. Sometimes I put them back into the altar, the crystal skull altar, and then I would bring another one out here. So I'm trying to give them all the attention that they need, um, because they will let you know if they're feeling neglected.
If I'm
They will
ignoring Bob, he'll come to you to tell me that he needs
yeah.
attention.
Oh yeah. Um, as far as seeing, the only one that has shown me kind of like what she looks like is Brandy, and only in like a meditative state is where I've seen her. So
Fun. Now, now I'm thinking, I'm like, well, the other ones at the store, I haven't really seen them out. They're not as chatty as Bob.
mm-mm.
Um, my newly acquired from Sandy, like we're still making friends, even though Orloff, like I think that mental image that I have of that character from the Goonies, like I don't think I can like overplace that because that's just what I think of when I see him. Um, but you brought up a good point, Maria. And this was something, Calavera, you mentioned earlier, like setting business hours when working with them and how important that is.
Mhm.
Now, like what are examples and why would you want business hours? Like, don't talk to me at 3 o'clock in the morning unless the house is on fire. No, like what kind of hours have you set, Calavera?
I'm really just good at tuning them out, which can be really bad. Because then they go and talk to Maria. So I probably have to develop business hours with the skulls. I know that if I'm, on the couch reading, when I start feeling a pull, and because all my skulls are scattered around everywhere, I'm able to kind of pinpoint who it is. Yeah, usually I'm just really good at just tuning them out. But they will make themselves known if there's something super important. Like when I brought home my little emotional support skull, um, he was very quick to be like, "We're gonna meditate, like right now." And I'm like, but it's like 9 o'clock. He's like, "We got no, like we're doing this right now." It was what I needed. It was what I needed to do with everything that was going on. Um, so there's times where I'll definitely well they know your high is good, despite you maybe not wanting to do said thing. But I haven't been woken up at 3 a.m. or anything like that, luckily.
So what are your business hours, Maria?
8 o'clock to 6. And beyond 6 is emergencies only. And it has to be an emergency.
You mean if the
None of
tequila
this.
glass needs filled, that's not an emergency?
No. Tequila, no, no. Or we need to chit chat right now. I'm feeling lonely. No, you need to rest. I need to rest.
Chit chat with your other skull friends. Which, makes me think of like Calavera you put up because you handle our social media. Who was it a couple weeks back? It was like the Council of Skulls, and they were all like in a little circle, and you had that chattering. And I'm like, I feel like sometimes that's what all of the ones in the store do. Like when the humans leave for the night, I'm like, what are they saying about us? Like, man, they were on shit today.
Yeah, absolutely, they do. They have to.
And Bob's like, yeah, and she didn't refill my glass. Like, and she still didn't get that right.
Bob's the instigator.
Good question. Is there a night and daytime for the spirit world? Like for them, like do they perceive time the same way we do?
No, they don't. There is no time or space.
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm. That's
Yeah.
why we have to set boundaries.
I think they're for me and my guys, I think they're definitely most active at night and like in the morning. So like the start of the day where it's just like, hey, what's up? Like how are you doing? And then the end of the night where I just feel like spirit activity, I feel like just rises, that intuition kind of rises anyway. So I just feel like I'm more aware of them. So for me it's at least morning and when the sun sets.
So would you say a good time to meditate with them would be nighttime, morning time? Because I feel like when work is done, kids are in bed, is when it's easier to concentrate in that communication with them when all of those distractions are done.
Hmm.
Yes.
Hmm.
Otherwise, they're like cats. They get the zoomies at night, right? And we're not calling them cats. But, um, and meditation, I think a good point to say is it doesn't always have to be sitting and holding and hoping to get pictures, images. Sometimes going on a walk and just letting that mind wander. If you have that skull, hopefully they're small enough to fit in a pocket. I'm not lugging like 13-pound Bob up and down a bike trail. Bob can come out of the skull and walk with me and talk.
Yeah.
But, however you best meditate to try and make that connection, especially that first time, those first few times, bringing them home, trying to feel one another out, that important time. And maybe that nighttime when it's quiet, when the kids again are in bed, work is done, the phone's in silent mode, and to really make that connection. Because I, for one, can say I don't spend as much time with them as I should. And that's when they can get rowdy, where they go get that attention from like Maria or somebody else, be like, hey, tell her. And then I'm missing on that opportunity to work with them to know, like, hey, for today, be aware of, or hey, this is going on, keep an eye for this, or like, hey, you yourself need to know for you. And when are you ready to address this issue? Um, which I feel like they enjoy doing more to me. It's telling me about myself, when I'm least expecting it. Um, accessing ancient wisdom and knowledge. Now, I feel like they're really great for helping you get in touch with ancestors. But when we say ancient wisdom and knowledge, like what does that mean to you and working with them for that?
Well, ancient wisdom, it could also be in the ancestral line. For me, My great grandfather was a medicine man. So therefore, I did not understand what he did. And they helped give me an insight of what, and sometimes I was like, oh, duh, that makes sense. So it's that kind of knowledge, like certain things that was in the ancestor line. Maybe I was curious, I said, how would he have done this? And they pretty much help me figure it out. So it doesn't have to be like a big, like the Book of Alexander or that type of ancient secrets. But it could be, if you're curious enough and you have a real connection with your skull, then they might lead you to there, or lead you to resources of finding information about that.
Yep, absolutely agree with that. Yeah, ancient wisdom doesn't necessarily mean like they're going to take you back to, Egypt or, the Mayan temples, but more so maybe stuff that you have also buried. And family even passed down generational traumas, stuff that is ancient within your own family line, but is still messing with you to this day.
So Lisa says, I picked up a clear quartz skull last week and I swear I already had one, but I couldn't find it. I don't know if they're masculine or feminine. You have a fun story about one of your skulls, Calavera, like disappearing for a year.
I did. So I actually had two that I'm missing, which is hilarious. Yeah, I had a skull of mine. It was a pendant because I will also wear my skulls. My small little pendant skulls also have their own little personalities. And I had one that was made out of Libyan desert glass. We just called her Libby. And she just disappeared one day. And I used to wear her all the time. With the price I got her for, I better not have lost this skull. Um, and she went missing, and I was inquiring from people like, where should I look? I've looked everywhere. I was told to check the one place where I feel like I've been neglecting, which was my art area. And I had found her in a bucket of paintbrush. My lesson was to not stop doing that and to get back into it. So they do. They will go missing, and you will find them when you least expect them, or in the place that you have been neglecting.
You'll have to let us know, Lisa, when you find your other skull.
Mhm.
And,
And where you found it.
and maybe that one went on the adventure to find the one that you just picked up
Mhm.
to help bring it to where you can find it. Maria, have you had one go missing and come back out of nowhere?
Yes. The very first call that I acquired, um, he was missing for years. And I really thought, because he's so little and he's not a pendant, I put him in my pocket and I really thought, okay, I lost him. I can't find him. And he was missing for years and years and years. I looked all over the house, and then all of a sudden he popped out of nowhere. I go, oh, there you are. And it was some books that I had, and I needed to, and I was going through something in my life at that time, and I needed to look at these books again and read them. So that was interesting, because I even forgot about those books.
So another instance of something that you had been neglecting.
Yes.
Here they were. So Lisa, what are you neglecting? Maybe that's where you should go check for your skull. If it wasn't just to go bring you yet another friend. Um, let us know if you find them.
It could be both, though. Bring another
Yeah.
friend and find out what it is that you've been missing, or just kind of stayed away from for a while, that maybe it's time for you to go back, read a book, or do some painting, or yeah.
Who knows? Yeah. Um, and then a question of, is there always only one energy in the skull or can it swap out? And I feel like, because Calavera, you mentioned you have one that can feel both masculine and feminine. Do you feel like maybe it's two different entities swapping out, or is it one that can just manifest both of those energies?
I believe that it's 2, um, where it's just they both stay in there, they both co-inhabit together. With that, like, I do have the one that comes forward more as of right now. That might change in the future, but her energy, the one that's more quiet, is always there. I do think that they can, swap out, where a skull might feel one way one day, and then the next day it feels completely different. So I do feel like it just kind of depends on the skull. When I say they have like different personalities, like they really do have different personalities. So that might be the way that that skull works, and you just have to learn to figure it out.
Bob has always just been Bob, and if he's not there, it's like a gone to lunch sign, like,
Oh yeah.
on the forehead, and he's gone.
Yeah.
No,
Mhm.
nobody else is allowed to go into that skull but him. That is his.
That is his.
There is a crystal skull oracle that, come to find out, you both have. We do offer
Mhm.
it in the store, but if you're a little leery of owning, like, the actual skull, but you wanna tiptoe into using their energies, is this a good thing that somebody should consider, you guys?
Yes. I normally do not work with I have them. I have oracle cards. I don't work with them when I see clients, but I have been using these cards. I've been shuffling and I draw a card and I actually look at the skull. I'm not really looking at the name yet, and I'm looking at the skull and I am giving myself time to feel the energies coming from the skull. And then I go to the next phase of, okay, this call is appearing in my life at this time in this space. What is the message? So I pretty much put that together with my energy and what the skull represents from the energy I'm picking up. So I love these cards because you do have your master skulls in here too. You have the 12 original in this deck. So you can work with them too, but there's 52 of them. I love working with them.
Now, how do you work with them when you're using the cards, Calavera?
So funny enough, Maria just taught me how to use them last week. So I used to just flip through them thinking that they could be used like a normal Oracle deck, and they can't. So it was really funny that you brought up this deck because I had no idea how to make it work. Also, a new fact to me to be able to connect to these energies of these skulls via a card instead of having the physical thing. Um, I definitely have a hard time, like, connecting that way, so it's cool that that is an option and something that you can use to practice. So if you want to just kind of flashcard picking up different energies, and, messages, it would be a really good way to learn and practice how to do that, for the people that might not know what they're feeling or how to feel it.
And I feel like it's a little easier to carry around maybe for the day, especially if all you have is like a bigger guy, you
Yeah.
know,
Mhm.
buckle buckle a big old, skull into the front seat and drive to work, see what happens. Um, which, I mean, funny enough, and I think this is where Bob is spoiled and thinks he has to go on all the trips. Like, I took him on a trip to go sit with Crystal Skull Max. So he was literally like in a car trip. So when he comes bugging you, Maria, about why am I not taking him places? I'm like, first of all, no. Second, like, come out of that skull and ride in the back seat. Like, I am not lugging this thing around. Now, do either of you have that you're willing to share maybe? Like, what has been your most profound moment with any of your skulls that have come up?
I think mine was when I got baby Surge because the energy he connected with me on his way here because he was being shipped to me. And he connected with my energy and I felt the intensity of the energy. I'm not saying that my other skulls don't give me that energy there, but his one was very intense. when he first came. I could not sleep that night. I had to either put him back in a box or I could not sleep. I mean, his energy was so intense throughout the whole entire house. So I'm going, either you're looking around, looking at everything, and I go, you need to calm down.
I definitely think mine was Brandy. I went to a gem show, like looking for skulls, and as soon as I opened up the door to enter, she was front and center, like facing the open door, and just the energy, the intensity. And I remember I was standing across from like a different aisle, just looking at this skull, and I probably looked like a creep because I was standing there for like 10 minutes just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Because she's a big one. She's about I think she's like 20 pounds. So and this lady came by me, and I've never met this lady before in my life, and she leans in and she's like, you guys are talking right now, and you need to do something about that. And I was like, I know. The guy who was selling the skull wasn't a fan of his energy, which was making it very hard for me to want to get her. And I ended up going home without her that night. And I tried to justify, well, I don't want to give this guy my money. I don't want to, and she wouldn't let me. So as soon as the gem show opened up the next day, I got in the car and drove all the way back and grabbed her, and I left.
Yeah, I think, Bob, how funny. So it seems to be all of our masters are the ones that give us the most, profound. And, it actually took the other reader who was like, "Hey, this is what his name really is." I'm like, I kept hearing something like that, but I kept thinking I was mishearing it. But why he was so set against being bought and taken home is because, like, this past life working that he and I have from before, and, our relationship from there. So it was almost like he was seeking me out, saw me. I didn't respond, didn't even know he was there. It was, the ex-husband who was like, "Oh, look, skull." And I'm like, "Oh, God, that's going to take forever to sell." And I'm like, it has taken forever because he's not for sale anymore. But in getting that message work, of understanding why and making it easier for me to finally go, okay, so you're never really going anywhere. And this is that connection that we have, and how and why, and like, okay. And then over the course of time, realizing that, at least for me, my favorite mountain in, our Peruvian practice is Asagante, even though in this lifetime I've never been there, but I love that mountain. And I'm like, Bob is a mini version of Asagante that comes around in that skull. And, that connection from before and what we have now. And I'm like, oh, okay. Makes sense. Great. Okay. Light bulb went off. Got it. Woo. We're on the same page now. So, and funny enough that in this lifetime, that practice that all three of us now have, dabblings in, dates back to, that lifetime I had with him in that area. And, and I'm like, well, I'm sure I need to put Bob in the will. Who gets Bob? Carry on down that line. Um, who gets Bob when I'm gone? Who's in that tradition that can care for him? Who's willing to put up with his sass and give him tequila? Yeah, skulls are fun. Doesn't always have to be hard and serious and work or nothing. Um, Now I've referenced giving Bob his tequila. Do either one of you like give your skulls little treats or snacks, or do things like play music or let them watch TV, or anything of the sort?
I play music for my skulls. Um, I usually do like the meditation type of music or the sound of the water. That kind. It's not, I'm not, they won't play any hip hop or anything, anything like that. But I give them the meditation music or some kind of serenity music. Actually, I do put on those that Mother Earth, I can't remember what it's called. The Hertz, one of the Hertz for Mother Earth. And they really love that one because it's a frequency that they are familiar with. Um, my petrified skulls, because the other skulls were in the earth. My petrified skulls, not so much. But the ones that really that it was a crystal underneath the earth. They really love that. So I played it a lot, and I just put it on. I have it on my phone. I just put it on. I say, okay, go ahead, have fun. We're used to the frequency because they were embedded in her, in the ground. So
Makes sense, makes sense. No, what do you do for all of your little friends, Calavera?
Um, I so this is the moment where I need to have my business hours because someone over here was like, "Yeah, why don't you do that? Why don't we do that? Why don't we get that?" Um, I'll figure out who it is later, but I don't I do like smoke cleansings every now and again. So even if they're not necessarily working or have traveled with me, I still do a smoke cleanse. I greet them as a form of just communicating with them and giving them that like communicative energy, even if it's just a hi good morning. But someone wants something else, so we're gonna have to figure that out. I should ask what they want, but yeah, I do small stuff like that. I always keep candles lit just to have that fire presence around them as well. So they are constantly being fed the energy of this specific room. Um, but yeah, they probably need a little something more.
Like, right now they're gonna expect, like, candy, treats, alcohol, coffee.
Right.
Because we've thrown that out there, like, "Well, this is what I do. Why aren't you doing it?"
Yeah. Yeah.
that sounds
Delivery car.
sweet. You can't do that for us.
And I mean, your skull will tell you what they want.
Yeah.
So if you're like, "Ooh, how do I start working more?" Maybe giving them little somethings here and there to make that, gesture of like, "I'm willing to do the work." So as a matter of fact, here is this to show that I'm willing to do that.
Mhm.
Um, and it could be anything. It doesn't have to be necessarily tangible, like you said, Calavera, the energy exchange back and forth with them. I have one that's always in my pocket now, little Orloff. Three that kind of sit on my mesa now. I've got the big amethyst one that sits on the table facing out. So he's always, being able to watch what's going on. And sometimes he gets a little pats on the head as we're walking past the table. And then of course Bob and his entourage past the door. So and people who know Bob will come and talk to Bob. So he gets a lot of attention. Now, like, what would you say, for both of you, like the most important thing if you're going to start working with the skulls? Like, what's the most important thing that to keep in mind as somebody starts on this journey?
Connect with them and talk to them. Talk to them like you would talk to a friend, a new friend. Get to know each other. That's the most important thing. Um, I mean, it's nice. Is they got your attention. You brought it home, and then you put it on the shelf. No, they're not. They're. If you talk to them, get to know them, you'll have a bond. They'll be your friend, and they will always be there for you in whatever it is that you need, or if um you need to take them when you're doing this type of work.
Yeah, I have to agree with that one. It's keeping that bond up. Just like how you would feed your altar, you have to also feed your skulls. So continuing to talk with them, meditate with them, just listen to what they want from you. And another thing is just being open to what they have to say and not to let your ego or your mind get in the way of what spirit is trying to tell you. Some people don't like the first name that they give, and they'll try and change it. Or they'll try and be like, "Are you sure it's not this?" Listen to like the first thing that they say, and usually like that is coming from them. So definitely continuing to strengthen that bond with them is the most important thing.
That being said, because I'm very guilty of not working, but it's like they are forgiving. When you're willing to be like, "Oh, I've been neglecting, let me come back." They are forgiving in that. They crack a joke at you for being neglectful? Yeah, but are they gonna completely shut off and be like, "Nope, we're done." Oh, quick point. Rehoming. And I know, Calavera, you're the one who brought this one up. You're like, "Ooh, let's go over rehoming."
Yeah, I have had skulls that I necessarily didn't feel that like spark, what we'll call it, with them. But I felt like I needed to take them home anyway. And I think deep down, I'm always like, well, maybe like we don't have it now, but like we can get it. Like we can get this spark going. And usually it doesn't continue. They usually stay quiet. They will probably, I feel like skulls that do not belong to you that you're working with, they won't give you their name because it's not meant for you, it's meant for someone else. So I have had skulls that I have rehomed um, with people that the skull will either tell me who it wants to go with, or which is usually a majority of the time, they'll kind of give me a hint as to which direction they want to go. And sometimes giving it to that person is only their way of getting to their next person.
Mhm.
So it could just be a traveling skull until it finally reaches their keeper that they need to be with. But I usually skulls that want to be rehomed just feel, and this sounds bad, but empty because they're not meant for you. They're meant for someone else.
Now, can they become empty when their time with you is done and it's time to move on?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Yep. They just feel like they're not there. The energy isn't there. It feels like when Bob goes on vacation and he's just, his vessel is there.
Mm.
That's what it feels like to me. And there's been skulls where I'm like, no, like it's supposed to be me and you, and it's not. And that's just how it goes. And I feel like that's kind of like how it is with a lot of things. Just crystals in general, but definitely the skulls are very open to traveling to where they need to go. And they make sure you know it. Don't try and force it. It sucks sometimes. It's what they need to do to complete their journey and to help someone who needs it more than you do.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like we get picked just to be the intermediary.
Yeah,
You're just that hand along the road, you know?
yep.
Right, yep. We're just a stop on the journey.
Mhm. Yep.
That's my whole business, right? Collecting stones to help them where they go anyway. Here we are.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think we covered a lot tonight on crystal skulls, and I feel like even though we bounced around a lot, we had fun. We got the main points out. Skulls, don't be afraid.
They're fun.
Mhm.
They're so much
They're
fun.
wise guys. They're fun. They have jokes for days,
They
right?
do.
They
So,
do, they do. They're fun, and don't be afraid of them. Sometimes they may tell you about who you are and what you need to pay attention to.
thank you guys for joining us for a talk on crystal skulls. We will be back next Tuesday at 7 o'clock. Maria, you're going to go over some psychometry
Hmm.
that works and how that can help your spiritual journey. But Tuesdays at 7 o'clock p.m. We are doing weekly chats now on Tuesdays, all about the healing work, healing energy, healing vibes, and different aspects of that. So please join us. Um, but thank you, everybody, for joining, and we will see you next week.